After the indictment of Sean Combs and the announcement that we were pursuing these claims, the floodgates opened.
Tony Buzbee, the flamboyant attorney who's made it his mission to sue Sean Combs for sexual assault, files more lawsuits as he dismissed one that became a battle royale between him and rap mogul Jay-Z. So how big of a hit has his reputation taken? Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Tony Buzbee hasn't been shy about his pursuit of Sean Diddy Combs in civil court, and I'm going to tell you about two of the latest suits Buzbee has filed on behalf of two men dating back to 2006 and 2009. Buzbee has filed more than 20 lawsuits on behalf of both men and women who claim that Sean Combs has sexually assaulted them. Combs, of course, has denied these claims. I want to be very clear about that. Combs is in federal custody at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn as he awaits trial on racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. He's pleaded not guilty to those charges, and that's a criminal matter. This is much different from these civil suits. These are different courts with different standards of proof. But back to these Buzbee lawsuits. The Texas attorney claimed last fall to be representing 120 men and women in claims against Sean Combs. Buzbee even set up a 1-800 number for accusers to call in. Now that number is being used against him by Jay-Z and Combs. More on that later. Here's part of what Buzbee said last year.
Most of these people are scared. They fear backlash in their communities. They fear backlash in their own families. They are afraid of retaliation from the perpetrators and their associates. They are rightly afraid for their own personal safety. I expect that through this process, many powerful people will be exposed. Many dirty secrets will be revealed. We know what we are potentially up against. And as is always the case in situations like this, when a celebrity is involved, people can be downright mean and nasty. You would be shocked at the length fans will go, no matter the evidence to the contrary, to defend celebrities they love. I mean, there's a reason for this word fans. They're fanatics.
But one of those lawsuits imploded in spectacular fashion. Not only was Sean Combs named in the suit, but so was Sean Carter, who you likely know better as Jay-Z. The rap mogul took a scorched earth approach to defending himself against the allegations that he, along with Combs, sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl at an MTV Video Music Awards after party in the year 2000. I don't want to completely rehash the allegations, but from the beginning, Jay-Z said he did not sexually assault this woman, and red flags about her story started coming to light. Then last Friday evening, Tony Buzbee filed to dismiss this lawsuit with prejudice. Dismissing a lawsuit with prejudice means it will not, and more importantly, it means it cannot be refiled. Jay-Z said in a statement, "Today is a victory. The frivolous, fictitious, and appalling allegations have been dismissed. This civil suit was without merit and never going anywhere. The fictional tale they created was laughable, if not for the seriousness of the claims. I would not wish this experience on anyone. The trauma that my wife, my children, loved ones, and I have endured can never be dismissed. This 1-800 lawyer gets to file a suit hiding behind Jane Doe, and when they quickly realize that the money grab is going to fail, they get to walk away with no repercussions. The system has failed." Sean Combs also had something to say about Buzbee dismissing the suit. Today's complete dismissal without a settlement by the 1-800 attorney is yet another confirmation that these lawsuits are built on falsehoods, not facts. For months, we have seen case after case filed by individuals hiding behind anonymity, pushed forward by an attorney more focused on media headlines than legal merit. Just like this claim, the others will fall apart because there is no truth to them. This dismissal likely didn't come out of nowhere. We can only guess that Tony Buzbee may have seen some issues with the accuser's story as well. I reached out to him asking about this, and he responded simply saying, "No comment." This is what Buzbee said about the calls he was receiving from accusers last fall.
We are vetting every call that we receive. We've had to turn away some. For each, we ask for corroboration. For each, we ask for the identity of witnesses. We also have collected pictures, videos, texts. We check venues, we check dates. We want to corroborate that the claims being made have legitimacy and merit.
This is a Law and Crime legal alert. Recent allegations against the multi-billion-dollar video game industry claim that video games are engineered for addiction. The claims include making sense of the magical hold that video games seem to have over people where they just can't put the controller down. Every win triggers a hit of dopamine that creates a cycle of compulsion, which disrupts daily life and harms mental health. Our legal sponsors are taking on this industry that some believe has put profit over safety. They're working to potentially get compensation for all of those impacted. If you or a loved one have suffered physical or mental health issues because of video games, visit vgclaims.com/lawandcrime to answer less than 10 questions and check your eligibility to file a claim. Now to those latest lawsuits that Buzbee has filed against Sean Combs. One of the plaintiffs is a man from New Jersey who claims Combs groped him nearly 20 years ago. The complaint states, in 2006, John Doe, a 21-year-old male model, was looking for modeling opportunities in New York City. He responded to an online advertisement seeking hip-hop models. He provided his name, contact information, and a number of photographs. Days later, an individual from Bad Boy Records contacted him via email, inviting him to the corporate office in New York City for a tryout. This is the first time Doe was made aware that the modeling opportunity would be for Bad Boy Records. The man's lawsuit claims he traveled to New York City for the audition, and when he arrived at Bad Boy's offices, there were a number of men there, both African American and white, and this man claims he was the only Indian model. The complaint claims Combs shifted the discussion to Doe's appearance. He instructed him to stand up so he could check him out. Moments later, Combs told Doe to undress and take off all of his clothes. Doe immediately felt uncomfortable and refused. Combs persisted, asking what he was willing to do to be in a music video and to be successful. Now, this man claims in the complaint that Sean Combs kept insisting that he take off his clothes. Then he claims Combs then noticeably became angry and aggressive. He stood up and moved close to Doe, standing right in front of his face. Without warning, Combs aggressively grabbed and firmly groped Doe's buttocks and whispered in his ear, saying, "Get me when you change your mind." Doe pulled away and left the room immediately. Security walked Doe out of the building. He left deeply disturbed by the experience. To talk about all of this, I want to bring in Bradford Cohen. He is a celebrity criminal defense attorney. He has represented a lot of people in a lot of things. So, Bradford, first of all, your thoughts on this 2006 case. We have a guy who says he was a model going to a modeling gig and that Sean Combs grabbed his buttocks, and he's filing a lawsuit. He wants to sue over this almost 20 years later. So, this is kind of one of the more benign claims we've heard. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. So if you've ever had an interaction with Sean Combs whatsoever, I think everyone is trying to file a lawsuit. I don't see it going very far that after 20 years, this guy came forward that allegedly, Sean Combs grabbed his buttocks. I don't think that's going to be one of the cases that's going to make or break Sean Combs, even if the allegations were true. But all of these cases that are now coming forward that are 20 years old, 25 years old, it really begs the question. And I understand, listen, I understand victim mentality. I understand how these things work when there's sexual assaults, that some people don't want to come forward because of the notoriety of the individual. But then, it really starts to beg the question that, if it was a big deal at the time, who else did you tell? What else did you do? What kind of actions did you take? Things of that nature that really, when you pull kind of the cover back on that, it's very, very little in terms of any kind of damages, especially with a guy like this. And that's assuming that everything he says is true, how it affected him, things of that nature, or his career. I just, like I said, cases like this discount real sex assault cases and discount real victims cases. And it really, it undermines the credibility of the lawyers that file the cases.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I find, and I'm sure having your butt grabbed would be, traumatic when you're at basically a job interview. I'm sure it would be, but But this pales in comparison to some of the other things we've read about, some of the other allegations in some of these lawsuits. I mean, we're talking about drugging people and violent sexual assaults, these allegations that have been made against Sean Combs. And I want to reiterate, he has denied all of these claims of sexual assault. One of the things, though, that kind of shocked me about this lawsuit, and then another one that we're going to talk about here in a bit that was filed by another man, is the fact that it was filed a couple of days before the big bombshell where Tony Buzbee files to dismiss the lawsuit against Sean Combs and Jay-Z with prejudice, meaning it can never be refiled, with this woman who had claimed she was violently sexually assaulted by these two men when she was 13 years old at a VMA's after party. Tony Buzbee, I mean, he came out guns blazing last October saying he was going to represent victims and he believes victims and that they were vetting all of these claims. And this just seems like he doesn't have egg on his face. This seems like he's got omelet on his face. I mean, like a whole chicken farm's worth of egg on his face over this whole thing. I mean, how badly damaged is his credibility when it comes to filing these lawsuits? Because you took on the big dog, Jay-Z, and you lost big.
Yeah, it's a real problem for him. The bravado, and I guess I always say ego is not your amigo, because the bravado of Tony Buzbee, and just that he thought in his mind that, people roll over on these cases, that the accusations are so horrible that most people wouldn't want those even getting out, that some people would settle before they even hit a complaint. And I think he underestimated Jay-Z. I think he underestimated the wherewithal and the determination of Jay-Z to investigate the case, investigate the claims, get individuals to investigate Tony Buzbee himself, which a lot of lawyers are not used to being investigated themselves and having cases filed against them personally. I think all of those things he underestimated. And when you're suing individuals, it's not just the facts of the case that you have to be concerned with, which obviously that's a large part of it. It's also the individual you're suing, and you're not playing the cards, you're playing the person when Tony Buzbee's suing, right? So essentially, a lot of his cases that I've read, I think they have holes in them all over the place. I'm not saying all of them do, but a lot of them do. And I think that there's weaknesses in a lot of his cases, and he's just, I think he overlooks some of those weaknesses because of the accusations and the type of accusations that are being made against the type of individuals that he's making them against. When he came up against Jay-Z, he just came up against a different animal. I mean, he's, I don't want to pump Jay-Z up, but in terms of a lawsuit, I always refer to clients like a Jay-Z as king of the jungle. Like, that literally is someone who is willing to go to the mat. He's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that case is getting dismissed, and he's willing to spend whatever it takes. I have a lot of clients that come to me that say, hey, money is no object, but when it reaches about $1 million, $1.5 million in attorney's fees, that it becomes an object. Jay-Z, I'm sure, I will guarantee he spent anywhere between $5 and $10 million on the defense of this case. And it's not that old of a case, but he poured a lot of money into the case, and it shows because, all the things that happened, all the investigations that happened, it shows that I think Jay-Z's story of that he didn't know who this was, this is a totally made up thing, a totally fabricated thing, I think was vindicated. And I think it really hurts Tony Buzbee. I think it makes him look like a complete joke that, he would file a case without doing your due diligence. The one thing that a lawyer should do always and I'm not even talking about where the accusations are so horrible. I'm talking about in any lawsuit, you vet your client, you make sure that the claims are valid. You look at contracts. If it's a contract case, you read over things. You look at, finance records. You look at the evidence that they have. I have never and I mean never, taken a case where I'm prepared to file a lawsuit where I have not 1,000% vetted that individual. And when you're making claims like this against an individual like that, and my only suspicion is that it was not vetted properly. To not vet a case properly like that, I think is a huge, massive error. And then for him not to address why he dismissed it with prejudice at all, not making any statement, I think makes him look even worse.
Yeah. And I do want to let you know, Bradford, I reached out to him and I asked him point blank, why did you dismiss this with prejudice? I mean, I think you and I can both, read the tea leaves. We know what happened here. And he simply responded, no comment. That was it.
Right.
And so
and that's unusual for Tony Buzbee.
There were some, yes. I mean, this is very not Tony Buzbee like. I mean, I mean, this is like totally not how he rolls. So I was like, okay, well, you're leaving me to connect the dots here. And my dots connecting are, you said you got this referred from another firm. This thing was filed. This is the more detail-oriented claim, one of the more detail-oriented claims that they've filed out of the suits that I've read that he has filed. All of the others are kind of like not that detail-oriented. I mean, some of them are, some of them aren't. But this had a lot of detail. And then you went up against Jay-Z, who's a billionaire, according to Forbes, a multi-billionaire. He's a mogul. He had Alex Spiro, as his lawyer, who is no shrinking violet. And so they just came out guns blazing. Like they were like, we are not taking this laying down. We are, as you would say, going to war. And, they won the war, it looks like.
There is no question, in my opinion, there is no question that they won the war, number one. Number two is the fact that Tony Buzbee gave no statement. Even if your statement was, hey, I can't give a statement because it's attorney-client privilege, something more than I just can't make a statement, I think lends itself to a lot. And to be quite honest with you, when you file cases like this and you don't do your due diligence, I believe that it opens yourself up to some negligence claims. Again, I don't know if Jay-Z is going to go that far, but certainly I think it does open himself up to some negligence claims. Maybe that was part of the reason why he dismissed with prejudice. I don't know. But I can tell you that it does not look good when you dismiss something with prejudice and then you say, I have no statement to make. It makes it look very, very dirty. And the fact is like I said before, and I've said this many, many times, these type of cases, and I some cases never come to light. I've represented individuals that, some cases never come to light because I attack the case right off the bat when I get a letter that I think is untrue against one of my clients, and I'll attack the case right off the bat and I'll give them evidence. I don't mind giving evidence early to show that your client telling you the truth. And I've done that before. In this case, and in every case, I say there's only two roads. There are only two roads in these type of accusations, right? One road is, hey, let's pay whatever they want and make it go away and keep it quiet because just the accusation itself, I'm going to lose, $100 million, $150 million in monies coming in, endorsements and deals that people will walk away from. I have a deal with Netflix or I have a deal with this guy that they'll just walk away from the deal until we get this resolved. And it might take 12 months to get it resolved. I want to make that deal now. That's one way to do it, right? The second way is, once you decide, hey, I'm not paying anything, these are completely untrue allegations, and I don't care if I lose $100 million in endorsements, I'm going to war. That once you make that decision that you're going to war, then you make the decision and stick by it. You don't then settle a couple days later like Diddy did. Like, Diddy essentially made the decision, I'm not going to pay anything, I'm going to war, and then she files a lawsuit and he settles the next day. That's the worst scenario. Right. So once you decide you're going to war, then, you go to war. I shut down my law firm for people, and I'll just go, that will be the one case that I will handle for the next 6 months. And every day I'm working on that case. Every day we're figuring something out. Every day we're talking to investigators. And that's essentially what Alex did on this case.
All right, let's move on now to the next case. The next suit is filed by a man from California who claims Sean Combs raped him in 2009. The suit begins at a small industry party at a Los Angeles hotel. Defendant Combs met Doe and enticed him with promises of a recording contract and entry into the music industry. Ultimately, Combs drugged Doe, an 18-year-old man, and sexually assaulted him throughout the remainder of the night while Doe lapsed in and out of consciousness. The man believes he was drugged with GHB, and in his suit features an exemplar of a container that he and others have claimed Combs' staff used to store the drug. The man claims, shortly after finishing his drink and being handed a new one, it became clear to Doe that something was wrong. He felt lightheaded and then began slipping in and out of consciousness. Doe realized he had been drugged, but did not fully lose consciousness at that time. It continues. Doe remembers being escorted out of the first room by Combs' security, then taken down the hall into a separate hotel room. Combs arrived in the room soon thereafter. Once alone with Doe, Combs again emphasized his power in the music industry and the opportunities he could offer, including a potential record deal and studio time. Still physically weak and slipping in and out of consciousness, Doe remembers feeling hopeful about the prospect of advancing his career, but scared for his physical well-being. Okay, so Bradford, we have this case now, this guy from 2009. He says he met Sean Combs at a party in LA. Sean Combs, somebody gave him a drink. He thinks it was spiked with GHB, and that he was taken into a bedroom, and that Sean Combs was like, I can help your career, gave you some studio times. And then he claims that Sean Combs raped him. It sounds really horrible, just a really horrible thing that happened. This is, again, a Tony Buzbee lawsuit. So this is something that happened in 2009, according to the plaintiff. Again, is this going to be difficult to prove? It's a different standard of proof in civil court than it is in criminal court. But it doesn't sound like, as far as these civil cases go, these none of these people are involved in the federal criminal case. So
right.
How are you feeling about this 2009 lawsuit?
I'm not feeling very positive about anyone that the feds have not listed as a witness to come forward and testify in the other case. If it was some sort of accusation or something of that nature, now they could say, hey, statute of limitations in this type of case, that's why we're not bringing it. But you still would talk to that individual, because they could come down to MO, like this is his modus operandi, like this is the way he operates, is that he quote unquote drugs people and then has sex with them. So those individuals could still be listed as witnesses, because those individuals may be allowed into evidence, and that would be for a court to decide whether or not other alleged quote unquote victims that would prove MO would come into play. And for your listeners, MO means that is the type of thing he does. And I always compare it to Home Alone, the wet bandits, right? So the wet bandits went around and they were breaking into people's houses, and on the way out, they would turn on all their faucets to flood out the house. Well, if you catch them in that last house and there's 10 other homes that are all flooded out in the same way, that's MO, right? Modus operandi. That's their calling card. So, a court would have to decide whether or not to use these individuals. The fact that they're not even listed as witnesses, the fact that, none of these individuals have come forward and said, oh, I've given the statement to the feds or anything like that, it's very unusual. And then the evidence itself, like where are, and I always call them receipts, but I'm not saying receipts like you would get at a store, but where are the pictures? Where are the documents? Where are the other witnesses that say, oh, I was with Bob Smith that night at that thing. He told me right afterwards, this is what happened. All these type of things that Buzbee's cases are, not all of them, but a lot of them are missing. These are just like blanket allegations. Hey, I was at this party and this is what happened when I was at the party. And the only thing you can prove is that he was at the party. I think they're going to be very difficult to prove those cases. And there's so many of them that you start to kind of get numb to these allegations, right? One or two people come forward and they're really strong cases. The Cassie case, the other ex-girlfriends of his that are really close to him, individuals that he might have had a lot of interaction with, maybe not an ex-girlfriend, but maybe someone that he had a lot of interaction with that has texts or phone calls with, things of that nature. Like I said, it lessens those cases by bringing these weak cases. And it's like, as you look at Tony Buzbee's cases and you start peeling back the layers of onion, these cases just are blanket allegations. They don't have a lot of detail in them. I think the defense attorneys are going to have a field day with some of these. And, it's just going to come down to how much money does Sean Combs have to keep defending the cases? And that's what Buzbee is probably hoping for, is that at some point he doesn't have enough money to defend all these cases. He starts getting judgments and maybe he can seize some assets that he has. But at this point, I don't know what Sean Combs is going to have at the end of this rainbow. And we also don't know if he gets convicted or if he walks free. And if he walks free, maybe there's an opportunity to make more money for him and he can start funding a lot of these cases even more and start really going after Tony Buzbee. But Jay-Z did him a big favor. Well, Buzbee actually did him a big favor by going after Jay-Z, because that was the crack in the dam.
Interesting. Well, we're going to keep an eye on all of it. This has just it's really been something to watch unfold. Thank you so much, Bradford Cohen. As always, appreciate your time. Sean Combs' lawyers said in a statement about these two new lawsuits, no matter how many lawsuits are filed, especially by individuals who refuse to put their own names behind their claims, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. We live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process exists to find the truth, and Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.